Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Before you get started, hit the like button and please subscribe if you like the content.
Welcome everybody. So today we're going to talk about how to change the rear brake pads on the 2014 Kia Soul. I believe this brake pad is used on the 2010 all the way till 2015 Kia Soul. So what you'll see on this video here today can apply till 2010 all the way through 2015 Kia Soul, I believe. So without further ado, let's get started. This is the rotor with the caliper on it, and what you'll need is a 14mm wrench socket, 14mm. Some people say 9/16, but it's a 14mm. You got two bolts. You want to unscrew one on the top of the caliper and then the second on the bottom. So you insert the 14mm, lefty loosey, righty tighty. These are not too tight. As you see, I did it with one hand. Snap both of the bolts, and from there you can just unscrew it with your hand. You can unscrew both of them with your hand. Make sure your emergency brake is off, because if you have your emergency brake on, you won't be able to remove the caliper from the rotor. So after that's done, what I would like to do is use a old-fashioned coat hanger. Just find somewhere in your vehicle to hook it up, somewhere that is snug and secure. What I used here, I'll cut that into half, that coat hanger, and the reason is to hang the caliper on it so the brake line is not carrying the weight. So I just removed the caliper right there, insert the coat hanger, and I just hold it so the brake line is not carrying the weight of the caliper. You don't want to snap that brake line. Very expensive and tedious to get fixed. So that's that. And looking at the brake pads, you can see the brake pads still attached. Very rusty. You need a flat head. Sometimes you could take it off with your hand. So once again, 14mm. Just gonna go over this real quickly one more time. 14mm, and I already took those bolts off, as you saw. One at the top, one at the bottom. Make sure you take those out, put them somewhere secure. I got my coat hanger there, just hooked somewhere in the vehicle that will carry the weight of the caliper and not have the weight rest on the brake line, which is expensive and tedious to get fixed, because you're going to be leaking brake fluid and everything else. Just open a can of worms. So back to the 14mm. I'm in the flathead screwdriver. Easily you just snap that out. you just snap out the brake pad, and you see that brake pad is pretty worn out. And same thing with this one, you remove that, and that's that. Simple as ABC. And looking at the two brake pads, you can see the newer one that I have, which is pretty cheap actually. I bought this cheap one because I didn't want to do the rotors just yet, so I didn't want to spend too much on like a ceramic brake pad. But that metal piece right there, the purpose of that is as you wear down the brake pad, that metal is what starts scraping your rotor, and you start hearing that sharp scraping sound. That normally goes on the back end. Whatever has that metal clip goes on the back end of the rotor, and you just insert it and you snap it in. Normally it should just be flush with the rotor, but as you wear down the brake pad, once you start hearing that scrape, then you know it's pretty much time to change your brake pads, possibly your rotor if you let it go on for too long. And you just snap the second one on. You saw how easy that was. Now you have those two pads there, but the problem now is they're so thick that that piston won't fit. So you want to take your screwdriver and clean in the piston. So you just want to, like I was saying, clean in the piston a little bit, and I'll explain why in a second. If you look in that one, you'll see there are two like holes in that particular piston or caliper that kind of compresses. That is what squeezes against the brake pads when you step on the brakes. So there's a little buildup of dirt in those two circles right there that you want to kind of clean out to be able to insert the tool there that can push that piston back so your calipers can kind of fit on the new brake pads. So I'm just taking my time to clean that out. Front rotors normally use a C-clamp to push back, but these right here you want to turn. See, I'm using a marker right here because you want to mark exactly where that almost semicircle is, so that when you rotate that piston and turn it around, you want to stop right at that line so it can line up perfectly with the new brake pads you're putting in. And this is the tool. It's a square, but it can be used for different cars. I've already changed one side, so I know I need that side right there, that style with the two corners. And based on what car you have, you can use different ones, and it's very, very simple. You just line it up in that semicircle, and right here I'm actually using one hand and just turning it clockwise very simply, and it just pushes that piston back until I have enough space. Now I'm just trying to line it up to make sure I'm right there with the marker, and to line it up, drew on the marker. So I needed that tool. Also needed a socket extension. I think it's a 3mm wrench. So now, see, I need a little bit more space because these new pads are still a little thicker than the space I currently have. So I use the tool with a 3mm wrench and a socket, and I just turn it clockwise until it goes back. It is very easy to turn back, quite frankly. I was using one hand to turn that. You just turn it all the way back. Then I line that up with the mark that I drew initially, and simple, it goes in. Now I want to unstrap the coat hanger and just put everything back in place. As you see, the brake line is not stretched out, so I'm just lining everything back up to where it originally was. And insert your 14mm screws, tighten them up. So one thing I didn't mention is you need to open your brake cap, brake fluid holster. As you see, there's a little brake fluid leaking. The reason why my brake fluid was like totally full, so I opened the cap, and as I compress the piston, it pushes the brake fluid out. If you don't do this, all that pressure that builds up snaps one of your lines, and you don't know where in the vehicle that snap would happen, which is going to be very costly. Finally, don't forget to snap your brake fluid cap back on.